Hello, hello. I'm here with producer Layla Mohammed and Nevada Current reporter April Corbin-Gurnis. There's a lot going on this week. And today on CityCast Las Vegas, we're talking about a proposed registry for animal abusers, a debate over assisted suicide for terminally ill patients, and President Biden's visit to Las Vegas. It's Friday, March 17th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Layla and April, welcome to CityCast Las Vegas Roundup.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I want to get into some of the stuff that's going on. We're in our legislative session, and so there are going to be laws cropping up, some which we anticipate, some which are a surprise. There's a new proposed law that would create a registry for animal abusers. Layla, what's going on with that one?
Yeah, so Assembly Bill 350 was introduced, and it increases the penalty for abusing dogs, cats, and really any animal from a Category D felony to a Category C, and it requires these offenders to be put on a registry. This first proposal was drafted in 2021, and now it's being reintroduced this year into the legislature. I'm wondering, April, what was your initial reaction to this proposal that animal abusers be put on a registry?
Honestly, my first reaction is that out of everybody that I don't want to live next to, which is like a pretty long list, I don't know that animal abusers, like convicted animal abusers, would be in the top 3 of people I'd be concerned living about. And I don't know necessarily that we need to single them out sort of scarlet letter style on a registry. It seems like a weird thing to me to single that out, like clearly a passion project for animal advocates. And obviously I'm not pro animal abuse. None of us are, but I don't know what practical purpose that serves to Nevada. Like if I find out my neighbor is an animal abuser, I could tell my dog not to go next door. Like he's not gonna listen.
April, you're such a lib. I can't believe you don't want citizens on lists for things that they've done in the past so that they can be singled out and ostracized and told where they can and cannot live.
Oh, gosh. Well, April actually made a good point that...
She made a lot of good points. Let's get real. Those are all my points, too.
What does this do for Nevada, right? I mean, the abusers already get fines and penalties, and research from the sex offender registry actually doesn't make it seem like this would decrease reoffending for abusers.
Really? The current punitive carceral system doesn't solve societal ills? You're kidding me.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when you look at the data. I was reading psychology today.
Looking at the data...
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so cynical.
The research is saying that overwhelmingly, the answer is that registries don't really make a difference in reducing the crime.
No, but it does make a difference in marginalizing people who have been released from custody so that they can't easily get back into society, and then creating a bunch of scenarios where living a life off the grid or living a life of non-compliant behavior becomes enhanced. So, yeah, registries are always going to be a bad idea, especially if people kind of have to go on them without there being a lot of thought put into it. There's so much to break down here, but, I guess the bottom line is that we, as a society, typically do not like people who abuse animals. There is a lot of research and also thought about the folks who do commit abuse against animals and what that might be a precursor to, right? So it's a concern, obviously, but is the concern best served by putting people's names on a list, by putting people in prison for a longer period of time? And I take issue with the word offender being used as a forward word. If you committed an offense, you've offended in the moment. But to call them offenders forever, to me, is in a way sort of preordaining how we view those citizens and, taking away some of their humanity and taking away the fact that they have the ability to grow or change or to be, dare I say, rehabilitated in ways that are not tied to incarceration. But I mean, what else do you guys think? Is there any justification for paying a little bit more attention to the people who are abusing animals in some way through the criminal justice system?
I mean, not that I've seen. I mean, I think you summed it up pretty well. I mean, I think the argument that I've seen for it is like, people need to know that these people are dangerous and it's like a precursor to other behaviors, but like so is abusing women.
Yeah.
So are a lot of other things,
Yeah.
when it comes to the public good, I can, like I said, I can think of several other things that I would rather know about my neighbors than something else. Like a few weeks ago, there was a story about some woman who lives within a few miles of me because she was arrested near me for her fifth DUI. And it's like, that seems more dangerous to me as somebody who doesn't want my kids run over while they play in the street because somebody's drinking at 3 p.m. And I'm not saying we need a registry for DUIs, but I'm just saying what makes animal abuse different than that, or what does it make it different than rape or sexual assault or violent crime or being attached to criminal activity, drugs and gangs or something. Like it's like, I mean, I don't want to argue a slippery slope, but I guess I am, you know what I mean? Where do you stop if we need the registry on everything, I guess, is the natural reaction to that, I think.
Yeah, and it is costly to maintain these registries in every state, upwards of millions of dollars. So that money could easily go to treatment and other things that you mentioned, April and David.
Okay, well, we'll see how this goes. I think that when you appeal to the kind of common denominator, we love animals, we hate people who hurt animals, it does have a chance of getting through. And I did see that at least one Democrat had signed off on that. So we'll see where it goes. Well, the state Senate is also debating end-of-life options for terminally ill patients. April, you wrote about this in the Nevada Current. What's this legislation all about?
Yeah, so this is Senate Bill 239. It's sponsored by State Senator Edgar Flores, and it essentially approves physicians, it allows physicians to prescribe medications that effectively end somebody's life. And it would be limited to people who have been diagnosed with a terminally ill condition and have a prognosis of 6 months or less of life left. So it's a pretty narrow scope of who's able to take this. It's a practice you probably know as medically assisted suicide or medically assisted death or death with dignity or right to die or end of life options.
Or see ya, suckers.
Whatever you want to call it. It's sort of been rebranded every year, hoping that, it has a more palatable taste for people who are concerned about the emotional weight that comes with talking about this topic. But this is the 5th or 6th time that this particular piece of legislation or a very similar one to it has been proposed in the state legislature. So we'll see where it goes, but increasingly in other states are adopting this. There's already 10 states and Washington, D.C. who allow this practice. That's up several states from, even a last session or two ago. So it definitely has momentum nationwide, and Nevada's taking it on now to talk about whether or not people who are at the end of their life should have the ability to decide exactly when that life should end.
Well, people who are at the end of their lives can be particularly vulnerable. How would this bill protect them from making an irreversible decision that, potentially benefits someone else?
So the bill has some safeguards, they call them, in there, where in order to qualify to receive your end-of-life medication, you have to make a verbal request, you have to wait 15 days, you have to make a second verbal request, you have to make a written request, and that written request has to be witnessed by somebody who is not related to you and not going to benefit from your death, like through your will
that
or
makes sense.
trusts or anything. And at some point, you also have to meet a second doctor who agrees with the first doctor that your prognosis is 6 months left to live and that you're of sound mind and capable of making this decision. You have to be able to self-administer it. So it comes in a pill form, and you take it, which means that it's not a syringe that somebody can like slip into you while you're sleeping. It's a pill that you have to self-administer. And those safeguards are supposed to be designed to make sure that people aren't making immediate rash decisions, and also to make sure that it's limited to a certain number of people and a very special type of person who needs this.
Got it. Layla, what are patients and patient advocates saying about this?
I think it's about giving the patient the most options, they're saying, and letting them have that option to choose how they want to live the end of their life when they have this terminal illness and diagnosis that says they don't have long to live. So while it can be emotionally taxing on the families and the patient, I think the thought is that it's even more emotionally taxing to see your loved one or a family member go through a slow decline like that. And something that you pointed out in your article, April, some people who get approved for this choose to not even take the pill.
A third of them.
But it's about having that choice. And I wonder,
empowering. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, April, something else that you pointed out in your article that was really fascinating to me was that they said that no matter how many safeguards you have on this, it could still be pushed on marginalized groups. So I wonder if there's something more to be added in the bill to protect this from being pushed on marginalized groups.
Yeah, I mean, the proponents of this type of legislation say that there's no data in the 10 states that already have this to suggest that it is being pushed on marginalized people. Although it's a natural fear that given how messed up and how many problems there are within our sort of overall healthcare system, that the fear is understandable, but there's no data to suggest that that's truly happening, right? And that would be their argument back to that. But it's certainly something everybody should be sort of cognizant and aware of in any situation. But yeah, it's a complicated thing.
Well, let me throw a curveball into this conversation. You know, Las Vegas particularly has a unusually high suicide rate. And we spend a lot of time and resource abating or trying to defeat the suicides that occur in our community and really focus on that it's a mental health disorder to want to kill yourself and that too many people are doing it in our community. Does that protection of human life and all our efforts against suicide come into the thought process? What do you think, Layla, when we're talking about this sort of end of life?
I think it's maybe dangerous to compare this so closely to suicide. That's even why the language has been changed on this to medically assisted dying or physician assisted dying, because once you get that terminal illness diagnosis, these people, April, you even put in your article, one of the women said that she didn't want to die, but her diagnosis had other plans. So I don't think it's about them, the fight against not wanting them to commit suicide. I think it's the ability for them to have the choice of how they want the end of their life to go, so they can have at least some choice to them being comfortable at home or being in a hospital or in a hospice. But it's hard to compare this to suicide and our efforts to reduce suicide rates, because these people are in such different situations. Some of them wouldn't think of this as suicide, just think of this as choosing a way to decrease their suffering, right? Because living with a terminal illness is hard.
Or a more humane death.
So, April, I hear what Layla's saying, but aren't the opponents of this bill really saying it is a sort of slippery slope with suicide, because there are a lot of circumstances where people feel that that's the best option?
They do worry about that being, they worry about normalizing it, right? So I think, a lot of people understand that if you're terminally ill and you have metastatic cancer that has spread, that a miracle is not coming. And that, if you believe in God, that this is God's plan for you and that death is happening and you are dying. And they worry, like, if we become okay with that, then are we eventually going to be okay? Are we going to push it out to a year left? Or, like, you know what I mean? Like, are we going to eventually get to a place where if you have a mental health disorder, if you are depressed, severely and chronically depressed for years and years, and you've tried treatment and it doesn't work, should you just be able to end your life. I think that they worry about that. They worry about normalizing it and pushing it. And the refrain that we kept hearing in this hearing from opponents was death should never be an option. Like, it should never be the goal. They say hospice care is great at doing what it does, which is making death more comfortable and for people and sort of easing them into that process, and that's enough. That the drugs we can give people to mitigate their pain and suffering in their death throes is enough. Or they point to the body knows what it's doing, and that those people in pain, as much as it may be awkward for us to see as loved ones who are standing next to them on their deathbed, is a natural process, and that they're not suffering as much as maybe we think they are. So there's certainly an argument to be made for that. But like I said, it's complicated. And I think every individual person has a different comfort level in terms of what they would feel is appropriate.
One more part of this that I think is important to bring up on the cost part, and your question, David, that you brought up about comparing it to suicide, that people often decline life-extending treatment, right? And choose to forego that, and that is deemed fine. I think if we are going to compare this to other options, this could be compared to that option of choosing on their own terms, these patients choosing on their own terms how they want to live the end of their life.
And to bring it full circle to our first conversation, we euthanize our pets all the time and most of us are comfortable with that because we understand that our pets are in so much pain and that we don't want to see them suffer anymore. But doing that to your pet, and I'm an animal lover, I swear, it's easier than doing that to your mom. It's easier than doing that to your husband. So I think it's a lot more emotionally loaded. But if you look at it from a policy perspective, and if you try to look at it objectively, how is it different? And is a medically assisted death for somebody who's clearly dying just humane? Is it just a natural extension of hospice care? Is taking a pill and not forcing your family to see you start to refuse food and start to starve to death and, whittle down to 80 pounds before death and forget where you are and be so doped up on morphine that you don't know where you are? Is that a better way out than sitting in a bed, saying goodbye to your loved ones, taking a pill, and then sort of that being it? How much control do we have? But I think there's this greater conversation about how scared we are as a society of death because we ultimately don't know what's beyond it.
And also, oftentimes religious attachments to life, all very interesting, especially in a cauldron like Las Vegas, where people's chances sometimes run out in a lot of different ways and they find themselves in real dire spots. But at least this one is being debated, and we'll see how it comes out in the legislative mix. All right, guys. Well, speaking of politics, I guess we're going to go for the trifecta here. We had a visit from the biggest politician in the land, the president of these United States. All right.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Trump.
Oh, well, they're all very, very important people. Joe Biden making his first visit to Vegas, I think maybe since he won or close. It's been years since we've seen Joe Biden's face out here. Vegas is a honeypot of money. So I think that the first night he was schmoozing with some old school Vegas names that are often affiliated with money giving, Molaskis and Greenspuns, oh my. But the official event that was reported in the media was a talk that he gave over at UNLV, and the topic was prescription drug prices. Talks about how he's going to bring them down. Did not mention that his predecessor had kind of also done some work in this area as well as the president, which is kind of interesting. That said, bragging that some of the prices through Medicare and for seniors, et cetera, are going to be coming down. All very, very important. Why he picked this particular topic again for his time in Las Vegas when there might have been some other topics that are a little bit more of interest on the Las Vegas minds. That is something I am curious about too. But I think the thing that everyone's talking about with the Biden visit is the traffic. because that's all we really do care about here. So how was your interactions, my fellow panelists, with the Biden traffic-ageddon?
I don't leave my house, so it did not affect me.
It's amateur night out there. April stays in.
You know what? It's easier. It's easier. I actually do live pretty close to the airport, so I see those impacts right away. And this guy, not to question his sanity, but not to question his care for Nevada, but this guy landed during rush hour.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
really,
what up?
like you really.
Yeah,
Terrible.
I also usually stay at home, but on Tuesday was my niece's birthday, so of course I had to drive all the way across town to Centennial. So I ended up taking some time and went way early, around like noon or 1, to avoid all that traffic, because not only is there presidential traffic, but the 95 is under construction. There's so much construction going on the freeways right now. So I was like, let me try to avoid most of that traffic.
Imagine if he landed during Drop-A-Can weekend or whatever that is, when they shut down the whole 15. Like
What does it say about our community that, the president's coming, stay inside your house, lock the doors, go nowhere near a car? So, oh, man. And traffic would have been a really interesting conversation too. Transportation dollars, infrastructure, et cetera. But that's not what he talked about. He talked about prescription drug prices. Okay, we're a battleground state. He ostensibly is still running for re-election. He needs Nevada. It's always part of everyone's formula. Was this a smart campaign stop? Why do you think, April, that he picked prescription drugs as the one and only topic that he talked about in public?
I think that, and maybe this is a hot take, but I don't know. I think it's true. That, he didn't come and talk. He may have come to Nevada and Las Vegas to talk about an issue, but he wasn't talking to the people of Nevada, I think, necessarily. That, he was giving a speech that was broadcast, across the country and into clips and things for other. I don't think that he necessarily was thinking about what is most important to Nevada specifically. Healthcare tends to be an important political issue across the nation, especially with certain age demographics and things that are very important.
So are you, and I'm going to just ask you, was he just being shitty and giving us a generic talk that could have been anywhere? And why would he do that? And is that fair to us? Oh, so many questions.
Yeah, ultimately, I would say yes. I think that, yes, I don't think now in this particular part of the election cycle is a time for targeted approach on certain local issues. Like, we'll see that, don't worry, in 2024, especially, and even sort of at the end of this year, I'm sure. But I don't think that's the time for that. Right now, it's just broad strokes and promoting the Inflation Reduction Act and just touting what we've done, which, unfortunately, Democrats have that is the area where they have done the most, which I'm not saying unfortunately because that's a bad thing. I'm just saying they haven't been able to deliver on other promises that he could be talking about, like student loans or immigration or housing.
Well, he picked a safe one.
Things,
Layla, what do you think were topics that the president of the United States could address that would have been something that mattered more to Las Vegans?
Well, I definitely think that this is coming before like a re-election announcement of some sort, and that's why this West Coast tour stayed more broad. But I definitely think he could have addressed Aviquame, right? And making that national monument designation that everyone was hoping for. We even talked about it on the podcast that it was coming and he was coming to make that designation. And then it seemed like from reports and from the Aviquame Committee's statement that they put out about it, that they're still hopeful and he just ran out of time this visit. So, I think that would have been a local issue that Las Vegans and Nevadans would have appreciated, seeing Biden come down and make that official designation. But I guess it didn't happen this time.
Yeah, and let's stay on Aviquame. That seemed to be a very surprising thing to especially the proponents of the designation, that they were kind of caught unawares, as they say, that he wasn't going to make that announcement during this trip. And not only did he not make the announcement, at least in public again, April, there was not even a mention of it. Like, not even hey, I'm just for you, the folks who thought I was going to do this one thing, I'm still got it on my mind or anything. I mean, it was a very beginning, middle, and prescription drug speech. God bless our troops. God bless our healthcare providers. God bless the union, who seemed to also be in effect in the audience, which probably was why that topic got picked. But not even a mention. Why would he not even mention it, April?
I mean, it could be strategic, right? I don't have any insight into Biden's administration, unfortunately. But, I think it could be because he knows that it is a topic that is so... he knows it's a topic that Nevadans care about and has gotten a lot of attention in Nevada. So if he even mentioned it, a lot of people, a lot of reporters would have led with that. Because it's the most local thing. So really, you could argue that he's getting more bang for his buck. We all had to write about prescription drugs and what he said at the UNLV event, and then maybe he'll come back between now and election to make the designation officially. My guess is that it's probably not dead and that it's still on the table and still being worked out. I don't know what's holding it up or anything, but I think the generous read would be that he's just going to save that for a time where it makes more sense. Maybe when he's officially announced his campaign and he's doing more targeted things in Nevada, maybe he'll do something a little more pointed at that. But I doubt that it's dead.
Oh, I'm getting a producer note. Looks like Biden might be announcing the designation within the coming days after all. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. I still don't understand why he didn't mention it when he was here, but politics and theater and, well, in a lot of ways, Las Vegas too. All right. Hey, it's apparently spring. Well, almost spring. It's going to be spring soon.
It's close.
Well,
it's getting there.
I got my phone on speed dial to Mojave Max. He just hasn't answered. So we'll find out. Y'all got any interesting plans for our fleeting window of opportunity that we call spring here in Las Vegas?
I already said I don't leave my house.
Oh, April.
So, no, okay, no, I'm going to. Spring is the one time I'll make the exception because the weather will be beautiful and it'll be biking weather and, enjoy your outdoors while you can.
Where do you go? Where are you going to take the little ones or?
We do, yeah. Obviously Red Rock and that whole area and yeah, just the desert, basically. Just get out of town, drive as far as you can and play around in the dirt. That's
playing in the dirt with April. All right. How about you, Layla?
Well, not to shamelessly plug the podcast, but we did just put out a brunch episode that I'm really excited to check out those places, especially the places that have patios, because now's the time to sit outside before the weather just gets unbearably hot. And also hiking. I want to get a group of people together to go to Gold Strike because it is a group trail. It's a little dangerous. So I want to get a group of people together to go to Gold Strike and hike that trail and go to the hot springs and stuff like that. Just enjoy the outdoors while we can.
Well, I'm old school. When it comes to the spring window, I'm into the spring cleaning. So I will literally open up the windows. I will crank up, I don't know, some band that's not coming to Las Vegas, which is my thing. That they'll go to our friends in Salt Lake, but they won't come here. I'm talking to you, Robert Smith and The Cure. So I will crank old Cure, top level, 11 basically, and I will go through all my old electronics so I could give them to the Blind Center. I'll go through all my old clothes, and so I'm so small I could probably donate those to Child Haven. I'm going to figure it out, but we're definitely going to find some sparks of joy by getting rid of things in the house during our little spring fever. Well, hey, y'all, this has been a fun and interesting conversation. Oh, that wacky legislature, they're never going to let us down. So, hey, thank you both for joining me.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. Our lead producer is Sonia Cho Swanson. Our producer is Layla Mohammed. Our newsletter editor is Scott Dickensheets. And our hosts are me, David Figler, and Vogue Robinson. Big fan. Music is by OG Moose, All the Kimonos, and Epidemic Sound. We record this show on the traditional homelands of the Nuwuvi, the Southern Paiute people. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Take care, everybody.
Quick thing, it's Corbin Gurness.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And yet, my producers completely...
Oh, wow. Just throw us under the bus like that, David.
Oh, no.
I was like, is she going by Corbin again? Okay, cool.
I don't want people to think like, oh, sure, that marriage didn't last. No, it's good. We're still.
But what about the
babies?
What about the babies?
Yes.